then. She'd looked away, and the odd connection he'd felt with her had broken. And it would stay broken. He was not in the market for a wife. Of course not. Not only did he have to guard Marcus for as long as he could, he was only 32, far too young to consider marriage. Oh, blast, now the Misses Boltwood were snickering and nudging each other. He sniffed in his haughtiest manner and looked down his nose at them. "I am quite certain Miss Davenport would not welcome my intrusion into her solitude, ladies." Though the thought of Miss Davenport a spinster— No, the woman's matrimonial plans, or lack thereof, were none of his concern. "That Spinster House!" The shorter of the Misses Boltwood curled her lip and snorted. "I can't imagine what Isabel Doring was thinking. Spinsterhood is an unnatural state." The other Miss Boltwood nodded. "A woman needs a man to protect her and give her children." Her sister elbowed her, waggling her eyebrows again. "And keep her warm at night." Since both ladies looked to have reached their 6th or 7th decade without nabbing a husband themselves, their enthusiasm for the activities of the marriage bed was more than a little alarming. "As you must know," Nate said, "Miss Doring had good reason to distrust men. It's not surprising she would wish to offer other women a way to live comfortably without a husband." The taller Miss Boltwood shrugged and flicked her fingers at him. "Bah! From all accounts, Isabel knew what she was about. Her mistake was letting the Duke into her bed before she'd got him to the altar." "Though you must admit, Gertrude, that if that Duke looked anything like this Duke, poor Isabel can be forgiven for getting her priorities confused." The shorter Miss Boltwood's lips curved in what could only be considered a lascivious fashion. "Have you seen the man's calves? His shoulders?" These elderly ladies can't be lusting after Marcus. The thought was too horrifying to contemplate. "I'm not blind, am I, Cordelia? And what about his— I'm afraid I must continue on my way, ladies." It might be rude to interrupt them, but it was necessary. Some things could never be unheard. "Oh, yes, of course." Miss Gertrude winked. "Here we are, keeping you cooling your heels when you must be anxious to meet Miss Davenport." "I am not meeting Miss Davenport." Unfortunately. No, where the hell had that thought come from? There was nothing unfortunate about it. He had no time nor interest in a marriageable woman. "You aren't the Duke, my lord," Miss Cordelia said. "You don't have to worry about the silly curse." Miss Gertrude nodded. "And Miss Davenport is a comely armful in need of a husband." Very comely. He must get these wayward thoughts under control. Miss Davenport might be the most beautiful woman in the world, but she was not for him. "I doubt if Miss Davenport would agree she's in need of a husband." He bowed again. "If you will excuse me." He didn't wait for their permission. He wanted to get out of earshot as quickly as possible. He wasn't quick enough. "The Marquess has an impressive set of shoulders too, Gertrude." "Yes, indeed. Miss Davenport is a very lucky woman." He resisted the urge to turn and shout back at them that he had no interest in Miss Davenport, which would be a lie. But he could have no interest in the woman. What he had, must have, was an immediate interest in Marcus's safety. He strode. "No, slow down. Don't be obvious. Marcus hates it when he knows I'm spying on him." And he wasn't spying, precisely. He was merely keeping a watchful eye out. He strolled toward the vicarage, which just happened to be directly across from the Spinster House. Was Miss Davenport still there? He didn't wish to encourage any gossip, but surely it wouldn't be remarkable to engage the woman in conversation if he encountered her. Actually, it would be an excellent thing to do. That way he could watch for Marcus without being obvious about it. Splendid. Miss Davenport was still there, dressed in a blue gown that he'd wager was the same shade as her eyes. A matching blue bonnet covered her lovely blonde hair. She was slender, though not too slender, and just the right